Hi, I'm Kat from Elevate for Self-Love, and today the topic is going to be if you're still traumatized and obsessing over a situation, that doesn't mean that you still want your ex or the toxic person that put you in that situation. I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding about trauma, and we're going to talk about that today. But before I get into the topic, I just want to let you know all of my videos are raw and uncensored. So you don't see any editing, and there might be some pieces of it that are thrown in there that didn't get cut out because I just love to record and put them out there so that you get the content immediately. Also, please, please, please like and share my videos and subscribe if you haven't yet, because I'd love to get this content out to more people. And if you like it, then it will go into the YouTube algorithms and it'll get exposed to more people who are looking for advice about dealing with toxic people. So I have this book here. This is The Body Keeps the Score. The author is Bessel van der Kolk, MD. And I'm going to read you a little passage from it. So chapter 12, that's where I'm at this point. And essentially, he puts a quote in here. Our bodies are the texts that carry the memories, and therefore remembering is no less than reincarnation. I'm going to read that again. And the person who said this is Katie Cannon. So our bodies are the texts that carry the memories, and therefore remembering is no less than reincarnation. This really kind of is related to Joe Dispenza and a lot of what he thinks is when people re-traumatize themselves and they think about a traumatizing situation over and over again, they're getting re-traumatized. Our bodies do keep trauma inside. It's an imprint. And in this book, they go into, war veterans, shell shock, and all of the things that people go through after they've gone through a traumatic experience that, these people just couldn't shake it off. And I just want to say that can happen to you in a relationship or an interaction with a toxic person. I would highly recommend this book if you have gone through some kind of trauma. It's a great book. I'm enjoying it. It's full of information, different types of information about how your body is affected by trauma. And some of the tips and some of the things they talk about in there, I have done for my own healing as well, let's say. And the few of them are inside the tips, my free ebook that's linked down below. Of course, on every video, I link that free ebook in case you're going through a difficult time and you need just some immediate help and you want to try to have a plan, let's say a structured plan. So download that free ebook below if that's interesting to you and you are dealing with very raw, difficult heartbreak at this point. But getting back to the topic of today, I would say that people go through trauma and they don't necessarily realize that they're going through it. And it also kicks up a lot of old trauma from when you were a child or things that happened to you maybe when you were younger. You might not have even been a child, but you could have been, let's say, in your 20s, or you could have been, doesn't mean that you were a toddler, or it could have been you were a teenager and you went through some really challenging relationships. Let's say your first love or relationship was traumatizing. Something happened there. Then you could become traumatized from that. It might not have been your actual childhood, but it could have been your first love relationship as a teenager. So there are a lot of things that can traumatize people, and then that trauma lives in you and it gets activated every time you're re-traumatized. So if you've been traumatized a lot of times, you will be more sensitive. You will have a longer time dealing with trauma, and you will have these prolonged periods where you're healing and thinking about it, could be obsessing about it and obsessing about trying to move past it. But it just takes a lot of time because you've been traumatized so many times that your body is just very accustomed to that. And it's triggering all the traumas of the past. It's re-triggering. So I just want to say that that doesn't mean that you actually want to be with the person that traumatized you. So you might have a trauma bond with someone, and maybe you are missing them, and you're thinking about them, or you think about what they did to you. Even if you're not thinking about them in a positive way, but you just think about what they did to you and how they hurt you, and you're let's say ruminating on that, um, and not fully over that, and maybe you have anger, maybe you have resentment, maybe you have sadness, maybe you have grief. All that is normal for trauma, people that have dealt with trauma. So my my opinion, and I just want people to know this, is that it doesn't mean that you're not over the person. It means that you're not over the trauma. So, like, I had a situation, which I've talked about on my other videos, where I was traumatized by someone who I felt wasn't mentally well. Well, actually, they told me they were diagnosed mentally ill. So it wasn't just like my assumption. But that being said, this person traumatized me, and that trauma lasted for months. And I had someone else tell me, well, why, you're like obsessed with this person. But it's not about being obsessed with the person, it's the trauma. It's the trauma that's not going away yet. It's processing the trauma, doing things to heal, and working on the trauma, whether that's going to therapy, exercise, meditation, and all sorts of getting massages, caring for yourself, eating healthy food, making new friends, making new connections that are healthier people, healthier connections. But it's not that you want that person. So you have to be able to like separate wanting that person versus the trauma is not yet resolved inside you, and it may never get resolved, because most people, like I said, they get re-traumatized in other situations, and that old trauma pops up. So it's more of a matter of healing the best you can, but it doesn't mean that you want that person, or that you're obsessed with that person, or that you still need that person, or they should be in your life. They should not be in your life. They should not be in your life. Those type of people are not healthy, and you don't want someone to traumatize you and re-traumatize you. Like I had this situation where this person would act nice to me and like somewhat normal, and then ignore my texts, ignore me. And that's not normal. Like that's weird. It's not healthy, and it was totally unnecessary. Like, I respect someone so much more if they would have just said from the beginning, I don't like you. We are not going to be friends. I just, want to do my own thing, and you do your own thing, and respectfully, not together. But when someone, and this is what toxic people do, when someone comes into your life and pretends as if they care, pretends as if they like you, pretends as if they want to spend time with you, then they actually don't. They actually just trying to use you for something, for their own needs, for their own ego, whatever it is. There's a lot of things that toxic people will use you for, and I'll do another video on that. Essentially, though, they do things where they love bomb you, like compliment you, make you feel really great, and then they actually change because it was never real. So, it's really hard to accept that that person didn't actually care about you at all. And I do have another video I'm doing about that whole piece. It's a bit of a blunt video on acceptance and understanding. I'm going to talk about when toxic people mess with your mind, or try to mess with your mind, and all that encompasses, why they do it and how it works and what they get out of it. So I would say just understand that trauma lives in your body. Trauma is something that you have to deal with and you have to heal on your own. And you cannot confuse the wanting the ex for, wanting them back, let's say, or wanting them in your life. You can't confuse that with the trauma. And you will have trouble separating these two things. But you really have to ultimately get to a place where you can understand, oh, okay, I'm just still processing this trauma that was really painful for me, but I don't actually want this person in my life because they are toxic to me. They're not good for me. They don't have the values and they that I value, and they cannot give me a healthy connection. And you only want people in your life that can give you a healthy connection. So I hope this video helped you today. It was a quick one, but I just want you to be able to separate the healing from trauma versus, missing or needing someone in your life. They're two separate things. And you might feel like you miss this person, but it's actually just the trauma. And you have to be able to learn how to heal the trauma and let go of this idea of, having the person in your life. And actually, sometimes we'll think like, oh, if I have the person in my life, this trauma will go away. But that's not true because, again, they can't give you a healthy connection. And that's what you deserve, and that's what you need in your life. You don't need people who don't answer your texts or treat you disrespectfully and act like you're just nothing. And these people will pull that. But you're not nothing. You're worth something. You're actually a special individual person, and you deserve so much more. So do I. And that's why you can't deal with these people, and you have to keep calling them out. Ultimately, they'll disappear, or you'll, cut them off because it just doesn't work. You can't exist in the same realm as these people because you'll either like get super stressed out and frustrated trying to explain things to them that they'll never going to understand, or they're just going to ghost you or silent treatment or do some kind of toxic manipulation kind of thing. So either way, someone's going to make it end. And then you're still left with that trauma to heal. So work on healing that trauma. Do the best that you can. And as always, put any comments below. I'd love to hear some comments about video topics that you'd like to hear about. I'm open to talking about things that are affecting you or questions you might have about toxic people or relationships. And of course, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already.